Hello and welcome to week 7 in Statistics for Psychology. And here we are, drum roll, midterm time. Midterm grades are going to be coming out this week. I have a ton of grading that I need to get done and a little bit behind on that. My apologies to all of you, but I will be posting midterm grades this coming Friday. Now, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do that. By and large, rather than worrying about creating some unique calculation of all the different things that we've been doing in class, I usually just rely on grades for attendance and discussions. Attendance for face-to-face classes, attendance for face-to-face, online discussions for my online classes. These have the grades in that particular part of the class have reliably predicted final grades. So it's a good measure. It's not a direct measure, it's indirect, but I will be basing midterm grades. Please perceive midterm grades for what they are. They are not declarations of failure. They are warnings. They are, hey, there's still time to make up for stuff. Get on the ball, get in touch with me, get in touch with your other instructors, change your methodology, whatever it is. Reach out to your instructors, anybody who gives you one of those. It's our effort to say, hey, things got to change or you're heading down the wrong road here. So that's an FYI on that. Now, this week, we are moving from central tendency, chapter 5, over to chapter 6. We talk about variance. So we have, what does the middle look like? And then we're looking, what does diversity look like? So average, standard deviation. You know, we're going to be looking at these two sort of diametrically cooperative measures that come in, the centralness of something in chapter 5 and the spread or the diversity within a distribution here in chapter 6. There are different kinds of values that we have. There are different kinds of measures. Just like in central tendency, we had mean, mode, and median. We have different numbers that we use to describe the variance that we experience in a particular distribution. Now, for the discussion, what I'm going to have you do is talk about the concept, sort of a critical thinking question to say, you have a group and you're trying to move, you're the leader of that group or you're part of that group, however you want to kind of consider that, and you want to have the group come to a decision. It's a trick question. Do you want a greater diversity of ideas or do you want a lesser diversity of ideas? Now, this is an application of a statistical concept to group process and decision making, but when you're trying to come up with a solution to a problem and moving that group forward, what's better? Or maybe what's the advantages and disadvantages of each? Do you need a lot of different ideas or just central? People are mostly on the same page. Let's discuss that. Okay, so that'll be the discussion. The assignment goes into you taking a distribution, it's a small distribution, and you're doing a bunch of statistics in Excel. They're all easy. They're all, basically with the descriptives, and you're looking at range, variance, standard deviation, interquartile range, along with other descriptive statistics. Now let's take a look at a couple of the charts that I've included in the course book here. We have this one here. When we're looking, this is actually a normal distribution. We've talked about that, but we can apply this to any shaped distribution. And remember, this is a curve that represents a very large frequency graph. For each one of the measures on the horizontal graph, the line represents how many of those measures occurred. Okay, so the one right in the middle occurred the most because that's where you get the account. The frequency is on the vertical axis. Now, whenever we're looking at things like percentiles and interquartile range, we're talking about the percentage of individuals that make up, what are the scores of the individuals that make up the first 25%, the lowest 25, the mid-low 25, the upper low 25, and the upper 25%. Those are interquartile, the top quarter, the top half, the bottom quarter, even the top 3 quarters. You can kind of think about that from that 25th percentile above, you know, those kinds of things. Now this is they talk about interquartile range because the quarters, you know, like we like to divide things in quarters, but it's the same thing as percentiles. We can say, we could have this as, how would we say it? Decentile, interdecentile. I'm trying to come up with the word for 10. So it'd be 10%, the bottom 10, then 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, up to the top 10%, and even up to 100, the top 1%. We've heard that topic. So interquartile range is just the quarters component of what we call percentiles. So when we get a score in a percentile, let's say you take a test and you find out that you score in the 80th percentile. What that means is your score, based on the scores that have been collected on that test, you scored better than 80% of the people. If you're in the 90th percentile, you scored better than 90% of the people. If you're in the 20th percentile, you have scored better than 20%. That's what that refers to, and it's a given line. And it tells you that where that score lies in terms of the percentage of people that took the test. Now, so these are some of the measures that I'm having you look at, is getting the percentiles, the interquartile, and here we see the median plays that central tendency is a percentile. The median is the 50th percentile. So we get kind of a crossover here from this range, this percentile thing and quartile that we talk about when we talk about variance, but the middle of this is actually the median, not the mean. It's the median. In a standard curve, in a perfectly normal curve, the mean, median, and mode are all the same, but in most distributions, they're not the same. And in this case, we can say definitively the 50th percentile represents the median, the score in the middle. If you lined up all the scores from end to end, biggest to smallest, the middle one is the 50th percentile. 25% of the people above that is that third quartile, then the fourth quartile, and then the second and first quartile going down, you know, toward away on the left side of the median. Now, another measure that you're being introduced to is standard deviation. A standard deviation is effectively an average. Now, hold on to that thought. An average of the difference between the scores and the mean. So if I took all of the scores and I calculated on both sides of the mean, and say some scores are just a little distance away from the mean, other scores are much further. So we just calculate those distances regardless of the direction. Okay, and the formula for the standard deviation has measures in it. The square root is there to remove the sign. There's no negative sign. It's a standard variance. So the standard deviation, variance, same thing. The standard deviation is the average difference between the scores in a distribution and the mean. That gives us a picture of, if we're looking at a normal curve, these examples, it's the flatness of the curve, whether it's kind of really peaked and everything's a really slow standard deviation, means that all of your scores are going to be huddled together in the middle. The average deviance from each score in the mean is small. If the average deviance from each score is large, you're going to get a flat sort of graph that's going to come out of that. And my next graphic here, right from the book here, this represents, here we see the blue curve, a standard deviation of 5, a relatively small average of the distance, average difference between the scores and the mean. And then the red line represents, higher than that, twice. And you get a little flatter curve. There's more variance. Higher standard deviation, more variance, more variability in scores. And then finally we get the standard deviation of 20 in this particular distribution, almost like just a little hill going on. Lots of differences in those scores. Not as many differences in the scores in the blue distribution as there is in the green. So my idea here is to get this idea wrapped. These two chapters, central tendency and variance, are descriptive qualities of your data that give you a sense of the middleness and how diverse the scores are. Both are really necessary to get your head wrapped around, because these particular measures are going to be parts of future statistics that we use. They use median, they use mean and standard deviation a lot. There's, when we're looking at other parameters of statistics. So it's important to get these first two descriptive qualities right under our belt here. And so I'm asking you to do that in Excel. Well, I'm asking you first to apply it to a non-mathematical situation in the discussion, and then I'm asking you to apply the tools within Excel to take a small distribution and get all of these measures to kind of get the sense of, you're going to get all the central tendency as well, but you're also going to pay special attention to the variance. How wide and spread out are these scores? And there's important things that we can come to conclusions of just based on those two measures. So that's the Excel file that you'll be submitting. So great week to look into the other part. We have central tendency and variance. We kind of talk about those things a lot for the rest of the class. And so great foundational skills. And I'll hope you have a great week. Take care.